I am a traveler at heart, drawn to the thrill of exploring new places and uncovering their hidden secrets. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, with its mist-shrouded peaks and rich biodiversity, had always been on my radar. I had heard countless stories about its breathtaking beauty, but what I didn't anticipate were the eerie tales that surrounded this beloved park. Little did I know that my adventure would take a dark turn, leading me into a realm of terror and unexpected revelations. The day I set out to explore the Smokies was filled with excitement. The air was crisp, and the leaves were just starting to turn, painting the landscape in hues of orange and gold. I arrived at the park early in the morning, eager to hike the trails and immerse myself in the natural beauty. As I began my journey, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The sounds of birds chirping and the rustle of leaves created a serene backdrop, but as I ventured deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, I decided to hike the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail, a scenic drive known for its stunning views and historical significance. Little did I know that this path would lead me into the heart of the park's darker legends. The trail wound through dense forests, and as I drove, I noticed the shadows lengthening around me. The beauty of the landscape began to twist into something more sinister, and I could feel an unsettling energy in the air. My first encounter with the park's haunting tales came when I stopped at an old cabin along the trail. The cabin appeared abandoned, its windows dark and the door ajar. I felt an inexplicable urge to explore, driven by curiosity but tempered by an unsettling sense of foreboding. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the remnants of a past life surrounded me. Faded photographs, rusted tools, and furniture that had long since surrendered to time. It felt as if the cabin held its breath, waiting for someone to uncover its secrets. As I stood there, a chill ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. It sounded like a voice calling out from the shadows, beckoning me closer. Panic surged within me, and I stumbled back, my instincts screaming for me to leave. I rushed out of the cabin, my heart racing, the whispers echoing in my mind as I hastened back to my car. Despite the unease that lingered, I was determined to continue my exploration. As I drove further along the trail, I encountered more stories etched into the landscape, legends of the Wampus Cat, a creature said to roam the Smokies, and the tales of the haunted Elkmont ghost town, where spirits of those who once thrived there were said to linger. The stories intrigued me, but they also filled me with a growing sense of dread. As night began to fall, I realized I was far from any designated campgrounds. The forest, once inviting, now felt like a maze of shadows. I decided to turn around and head back, but the wayward paths and dimming light made navigation difficult. The eerie silence of the woods enveloped me, and the whispers I had heard earlier seemed to return, swirling around me like a chilling breeze. When I finally reached the main road, I breathed a sigh of relief, but my sense of safety was short-lived. The headlights of my car illuminated the trees, casting long shadows that danced in the darkness. Suddenly, a figure darted across the road ahead, something unidentifiable, just a blur in the periphery of my vision. My heart raced as I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding slightly on the gravel. What had I just seen? The uncertainty gnawed at me as I sat in the car, frozen in fear. The park had always been a place of beauty and adventure, but now it felt like a trap, closing in around me. The legends and tales I had brushed off were now creeping into my reality, blurring the lines between myth and truth. With my pulse racing and adrenaline surging, I knew it was time to leave the park. But as I turned the car around, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched by the very spirits of the Smoky Mountains, guardians of the secrets hidden within their depths. And as I drove away, I understood that my adventure had transformed into something far more sinister than I had ever anticipated. The Great Smoky Mountains would forever hold a piece of my heart, but they would also serve as a reminder of the dangers that lay beneath their enchanting facade. As I continued my exploration of the Great Smoky Mountains, the landscape unfolded around me like a living tapestry, each thread woven with stories of the past. The towering trees loomed above, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind, while the trails twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the heart of the wilderness. It was a world rich with history, one that had been shaped by the hands of those who had come before me, both in joy and in tragedy. Among the stories that echoed through the mountains, the legend of the Wampus Cat stood out as particularly haunting. According to local lore, this creature was said to be a shapeshifter, a spirit that roamed the forest, seeking vengeance on those who had wronged it. The tale had been passed down through generations, a cautionary fable warning of the consequences of disrespecting the land and its spirits. I could feel the weight of the legend pressing upon me, a reminder that the mountains were not merely a backdrop for adventure, but a realm inhabited by forces beyond my comprehension. As I hiked deeper into the forest, I encountered fellow travelers who had come to experience the beauty of the Smokies. One such individual was Rachel, a spirited woman in her late 20s with an infectious enthusiasm for nature. She had grown up in the foothills of the Smokies, often spending her weekends hiking and camping with her family. Rachel shared stories of her childhood adventures, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia as she recounted the thrill of exploring hidden trails and discovering secret waterfalls. "I've always felt a connection to this place," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "There's something magical about it, something that makes you feel alive." Her passion was evident, and I found myself captivated by her perspective. Rachel had a deep respect for the land, and she often spoke about the importance of preserving its beauty for future generations. In contrast, I also met David, a seasoned hiker with a more skeptical view of the legends that surrounded the mountains. He was practical, often dismissing the tales as mere superstition. "It's just a way to explain the unexplainable," he stated matter-of-factly as we shared a campfire one evening. "People love to create stories to make sense of their fears, but at the end of the day, it's just nature. You have to be smart about it." David's pragmatic approach provided a counterbalance to Rachel's romanticism. While I appreciated his logical perspective, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was truth hidden within the legends. The more I learned about the land, the more I realized that there were layers of meaning intertwined with its beauty, an understanding that transcended mere survival. As the days turned into weeks, the dynamic among our small group shifted. Rachel and David often found themselves at odds, their differing beliefs leading to heated debates around the campfire. Rachel would passionately defend the legends, while David would roll his eyes, dismissing them as fanciful tales. I found myself caught in the middle, appreciating both perspectives but struggling to reconcile them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the sky, we gathered to share stories. The mood was lighter, and laughter filled the air as we exchanged tales of our adventures. But as the darkness settled in, the atmosphere shifted. Rachel, feeling emboldened, recounted the story of the Wampus cat, her voice dropping to a whisper as she described the creature's vengeful nature and its connection to the mountains. "People say you can feel its presence if you listen closely," she said, her eyes glinting with excitement. "It's said to protect the forest from those who would harm it. If you disrespect the land, you might just find yourself facing it." David scoffed, shaking his head. "That's just fear-mongering. Nature doesn't need a mythical creature to protect it. It can take care of itself." The air grew tense as the two exchanged barbs, their contrasting views creating an undercurrent of conflict. I could feel the weight of their words, the clash of beliefs echoing in the stillness of the forest. It became clear to me that their differing perspectives were rooted in their individual experiences. Rachel's deep emotional connection to the land versus David's practical approach to survival. As I listened to their debate, I realized that my own understanding of the mountains was evolving. The legends weren't simply stories, they were a way for people to connect with the land, to find meaning in their experiences. The Smokies were alive, shaped by the narratives of those who walked its paths. In the days that followed, I took time to reflect on my place within this intricate web of relationships and stories. I began to appreciate the value of both Rachel's reverence for the legends and David's pragmatic approach. The mountains held a mirror to our souls, revealing our fears, desires, and beliefs. It became clear to me that to truly understand the Smokies, I had to embrace the complexities of both perspectives and allow them to coexist. As our journey continued, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Great Smoky Mountains were more than a destination. They were a living tapestry of history, emotion, and connection. Each step I took brought me closer to understanding not only the land, but also myself and the bonds we formed in our shared adventure. The mysteries of the forest beckoned, and I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. As we delved deeper into the thick woods of the Great Smoky Mountains, the atmosphere shifted from a sense of adventure to one laden with tension and uncertainty. The stories surrounding the area, especially those of the Wampus cat and other local legends, began to haunt my thoughts. While I had initially dismissed them as mere folklore, the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on my shoulders. Each day, I could feel the spirits of the forest watching, their eyes hidden in the shadows, and the landscape began to feel more like a maze of secrets than a welcoming sanctuary. The first signs of conflict emerged during a particularly challenging day of hiking. The weather had taken a turn for the worse, dark clouds rolling in and heavy rain beginning to fall. As the trail became muddy and treacherous, tensions among our group escalated. Clara's enthusiasm began to wane as she struggled to keep her footing. "This isn't what I signed up for," she huffed, frustration evident in her voice. "I thought we were here to enjoy the beauty of the mountains, not to battle the elements." David, on the other hand, remained resolute. "We knew the risks when we came out here. This is part of the adventure," he reminded her, his tone a mix of irritation and encouragement. His pragmatism often clashed with Clara's more romantic view of the wilderness, creating a rift that seemed to grow wider with each obstacle we faced. As the rain poured down, we sought refuge under a rocky overhang. The sound of raindrops hitting the ground was deafening, a reminder of the forces of nature we were up against. "Let's take a break," I suggested, trying to diffuse the tension. "We can regroup and decide how to proceed." As we huddled together, Clara expressed her fears more openly. "What if we lose our way? What if something happens to us? I can't shake the feeling that we're not alone out here," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "That's just the stories getting to you," David replied dismissively, though I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes as well. "We're fine as long as we stick together. We've trained for this." But Clara wasn't the only one feeling the weight of unease. I too had started to question our choices. The legends of the mountains, once just tales to entertain, now felt like warnings. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were pushing our luck, venturing further into a realm that was unforgiving and perhaps even hostile. As we resumed our hike after the rain subsided, the trail became increasingly treacherous. The ground was slick, and the visibility was reduced as fog rolled in, wrapping the trees and rocks in a shroud of gray. Each step felt like a risk, and the forest began to feel claustrophobic, the trees closing in around us. "We need to be cautious," I reminded the group. "Let's stick to the path." But Clara, driven by an urgency to prove her strength and determination, suggested we veer off the trail. "There's a spot I've read about that offers a breathtaking view. We could find it if we just cut through here," she insisted, her enthusiasm palpable. "Cutting through the underbrush could lead us into dangerous territory," I countered, my voice firm. "We need to stay together and prioritize safety." David, sensing the tension rising between us, intervened. "I get that we want to see the views, but we need to respect the land and our limits. There's no shame in sticking to the path." His words hung in the air, a reminder that we were all feeling the pressure of the situation. Despite our discussions, Clara ultimately led us off the trail, her desire for adventure overriding the caution we had discussed. I followed reluctantly, hoping that the reward would justify the risk. As we pushed deeper into the wild, the underbrush thickened, and the air grew heavy with anticipation. The forest felt different, almost alive in a way that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. After what felt like hours of navigating through dense foliage, we stumbled upon a clearing that opened up to a breathtaking view of the valley below. The sight was magnificent, but the sense of triumph was short-lived. As we stood there, taking in the beauty, the wind shifted suddenly, bringing with it an unsettling chill. The atmosphere became charged, and a low rumble echoed through the trees, a sound that sent a wave of unease coursing through me. "Did you hear that?" Lila whispered, her voice barely audible. The joy of our discovery evaporated, replaced by a collective sense of foreboding. Before we could react, the air seemed to thicken, and the forest around us fell eerily silent. The vibrant colors of the landscape dulled, the shadows deepening in a way that made it feel as if we were being enveloped by something dark and ancient. My instincts screamed that we needed to leave, to return to the safety of the trail. "Let's go back," I urged, my voice firm. "This doesn't feel right." But Clara, emboldened by our earlier success, insisted. "We can't just leave now. This is where we find the stories that matter." The conflict escalated as we debated our next move, emotions running high. The very essence of the mountain seemed to shift, and I felt the weight of the legends pressing down upon us. We were at a crossroads, not just in our journey, but in our understanding of our place in this wild and mysterious world. As we stood at the edge of that clearing, the atmosphere shifted dramatically, and the complexities of our situation began to unravel like a tightly wound coil. The decision to venture off the trail had not only sparked a conflict among us, but had also brought to light the deeper fears and motivations that each of us carried. The great Smoky Mountains, with their breathtaking beauty and hidden dangers, became a metaphor for the emotional landscapes we were each navigating. Clara's determination to uncover the truth about the missing hikers began to reveal her deeper motivations. Her insistence on pushing forward, despite the rising tension, was rooted in a personal history that she had yet to share with the group. I could sense that her connection to this journey was more than just an adventurous spirit. It was a quest for validation and closure. Clara had lost a close friend in a hiking accident years before, a tragedy that still haunted her. The drive to find the missing hikers was, in many ways, a reflection of her need to confront her own unresolved grief. One evening, as we sat around the campfire, I noticed Clara staring into the flames, lost in thought. The flickering light danced across her face, illuminating the turmoil beneath her surface. I decided to approach her. "Clara, what's really driving you? You've been so focused on this search. Is it just about the hikers, or is there something more?" Her gaze remained fixed on the fire for a moment before she exhaled deeply, the weight of her emotions spilling forth. "I lost my best friend on a hike a few years ago. She fell into a ravine, and I couldn't save her. I've carried that guilt ever since. This feels like a chance to make things right, to find those who are lost and help them before it's too late." Her vulnerability hung in the air, and I felt a rush of empathy for her struggles. Meanwhile, Mark had his own narrative unfolding in parallel. He was the pragmatic voice of reason, but his confidence began to waver as the search wore on. Each argument with Clara chipped away at his resolve, revealing insecurities I had not previously seen. "I'm not sure I can keep doing this," he confessed one night when the weight of exhaustion settled heavily on his shoulders. "I thought I could handle this, but I feel like I'm failing everyone. What if we never find them?" "Mark, you're not failing," I reassured him. "We're all in this together, and we have to support one another. It's okay to feel scared. It means you care." His vulnerability opened the door for deeper conversations among the group, allowing us to share our fears and doubts openly. Then there was Lila, who had initially been hesitant about the entire expedition. She had come along for the experience, but had been increasingly overwhelmed by the mounting pressure to find the hikers. As the tension within the group escalated, she began to retreat into herself, wrestling with her thoughts in silence. One evening, as we shared our reflections, I noticed her looking out at the darkened trees, her expression pensive. "What's on your mind?" I asked gently, hoping to draw her out of her shell. I don't know if I belong here," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought this would be an adventure, but I'm not cut out for this kind of danger. I feel like I'm holding everyone back." "Lila, you have just as much right to be here as any of us," Clara interjected, her tone firm yet supportive. "We all have our strengths, and we need you. Don't underestimate your value in this group." As we navigated these personal subplots, I began to feel the weight of the forest pressing in around us, a reminder that we were all grappling with our own demons. The wilderness had a way of stripping away our facades, forcing us to confront the raw essence of who we were. Each night, as we gathered around the campfire, we shared not only our fears but also our dreams. I realized that while we were searching for the lost hikers, we were also searching for pieces of ourselves. The mountains, with their imposing presence, had become a catalyst for growth. The day of the turning point approached, and I felt the culmination of our experiences building toward a climax. The complexities of our individual stories would soon intertwine in a way that would challenge us to rise above our fears and emerge stronger. The Great Smoky Mountains were not just a physical destination. They were a crucible of transformation, a place where we would be tested and ultimately changed. The turning point of our expedition came unexpectedly, like a bolt of lightning illuminating the dark clouds that had gathered over our journey. After days of searching for the missing hikers, the tension among our group had reached a breaking point, and the mountains seemed to sense our unease. On that fateful day, the weather shifted dramatically, mirroring the emotional turmoil brewing within us. It began with a loud crack of thunder that reverberated through the valleys, sending a shiver down my spine. The sky, once clear, darkened ominously as storm clouds rolled in, heavy with the promise of rain. "We need to find shelter," Mark shouted, his voice cutting through the mounting panic. "This storm is coming in fast." Clara, however, was undeterred. "We can't turn back now. We're so close to finding them." Her determination clashed with Mark's caution, igniting a fierce argument that left the air thick with tension. I could see the fear in Lila's eyes, and I felt my own anxiety rising. The mountain was no longer just a physical challenge. It had become a battleground for our differing motivations and fears. As the first drops of rain began to fall, I took a deep breath, attempting to calm the rising chaos. "Listen, we need to regroup," I said firmly. "Let's find a place to hunker down until the storm passes. We can't risk getting caught out here in these conditions." Reluctantly, Clara nodded, and we quickly searched for a suitable shelter among the trees. We found a small overhang, just large enough to accommodate the four of us. As we huddled together, the rain intensified, transforming into a torrential downpour. The sound of water pounding against the rock drowned out our voices, leaving us in a tense silence, punctuated only by the occasional rumble of thunder. In that moment of stillness, I could feel the weight of our situation pressing down on us. The storm outside felt like a reflection of the turmoil within. Clara's frustration, Mark's anxiety, and Lila's fear collided in a whirlwind of emotions. It was clear that we needed to confront not only the elements, but also the unspoken tensions that had been simmering beneath the surface. "Why are we all so afraid?" I finally asked, breaking the silence. "We've faced challenges before, and we've made it through together. What's different this time?" Clara looked at me, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and vulnerability. "It's not just the storm, Alex. It's everything. The pressure to find the hikers, the fear of what might happen if we don't, it's overwhelming." Mark chimed in. "And what if we're not prepared? What if we make the wrong decision? We can't afford to fail." Lila nodded in agreement, her voice trembling. "I feel like I'm holding everyone back. Maybe I shouldn't have come." As I listened to their fears, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. I had insisted we continue our journey, believing that we could conquer the mountain together. But I realized now that I had underestimated the emotional toll this expedition was taking on all of us. "We're in this together," I said gently, trying to reassure them. "We all have our fears, but we need to support each other, not let that fear divide us." The storm raged on outside, but the conversation shifted. We began to share our personal stories, our motivations for being here, the challenges we had faced in our lives, and the fears that haunted us. Clara spoke of her past, her struggles with self-doubt and the pressure to prove herself. Mark opened up about his fear of failure, the weight of expectations he felt from his family. Lila shared her insecurities, her fear of not belonging. As we bared our souls, I could feel the tension in the air begin to dissipate. The storm outside became a distant background noise, fading into insignificance compared to the strength we were building within our group. We were no longer just four individuals on a mission. We had become a team, united by our vulnerabilities and shared experiences. When the rain finally began to subside, we emerged from our shelter, the forest transformed by the downpour. The air was fresh, and the world sparkled with droplets glistening on leaves. It felt as if we had weathered not just a storm, but a turning point in our journey, a moment of growth that would propel us forward. With renewed determination, we decided to press on. The path ahead remained uncertain, but we were ready to face whatever challenges awaited us together. As we walked side by side, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the bonds we had forged, knowing that this journey would forever change us. The mountains stood tall above us, but we were no longer intimidated. We had found our strength and our unity in the face of adversity. Together, we would uncover the truth behind the missing hikers, and we would do so as a team. As we continued our ascent, the atmosphere around us shifted dramatically. The storm had passed, leaving behind a trail of clarity and resolve, but the aftereffects of our earlier confrontation lingered in the air. Each step we took felt heavier, yet more purposeful, a commitment to face the unknown together. However, the emotional weight of our previous discussions was palpable, and I could sense that our individual fears still simmered beneath the surface. The first sign of consequence emerged when we reached a particularly steep section of the trail. The ground was slippery from the rain, and as Clara led the way, her foot slipped, sending her tumbling backward. My heart raced as I lunged to grab her arm, pulling her back just in time. "Are you okay?" I asked, panic lacing my voice. "I'm fine," she said, brushing off the dirt and trying to regain her composure. But her earlier bravado had faded, replaced by an anxiety that I hadn't noticed before. The fall had rattled her, and I could see it in her eyes. The fear of failure, the very emotion we had unpacked in the cave, was resurfacing, threatening to consume her once again. Mark, noticing Clara's distress, stepped in to reassure her. "Hey, we all stumble sometimes. It's part of the journey. Just take a breath and remember we're here for you." His words were gentle, but I could see the concern etched on his face. The dynamic between them had shifted, the earlier tension replaced by a newfound understanding. As we continued our climb, I could see Lila struggling with her own insecurities. She had been quieter since the storm, her earlier confidence waning. "What if I'm not cut out for this?" she whispered to me as we paused to catch our breath. "What if I hold you all back?" "Lila, you've already proven how strong you are," I replied, trying to instill some of the confidence I felt she lacked. "We've all had our moments of doubt, but it's about how we support each other through it. You belong here." Her smile was tentative, but it was a start. I could sense that the emotional toll of our journey was affecting us all in different ways, and I felt the weight of responsibility to ensure we all emerged from this experience stronger. We reached a small ledge that overlooked a breathtaking valley, a stunning reward for our efforts. The view was a reminder of why we had embarked on this journey in the first place. The sprawling landscape was filled with vibrant greens and the remnants of the storm, glistening under the sun. It was a moment of beauty that made the struggle worthwhile, but I could sense that it was also a moment of reflection. As we took in the view, Clara spoke up, her voice steadier now. "Thanks for pulling me back earlier. I guess I let my fear get the better of me. I've been so consumed with finding the missing hikers that I lost sight of why I love this place. It's not just about reaching the top, it's about the journey and the connections we make along the way." Her admission struck a chord, resonating with the group. We had all been through a transformation, and acknowledging our fears had allowed us to grow stronger together. After a brief moment of silence, Mark added, "We're all in this together. No one is alone in this journey. We rise and fall as a team, and that's what makes us stronger." With renewed energy, we pressed on. The path ahead was still daunting, but the bonds we had forged through our struggles provided the strength we needed to continue. As we navigated the steep terrain, I felt a sense of camaraderie that I had never experienced before. We were no longer just individuals pursuing our own ambitions. We were united by a shared purpose. As we approached the final leg of our ascent, the challenges we faced became more tangible. The terrain grew rockier, and the air turned frigid, but we pressed on, supporting one another as we climbed. The emotional barriers we had once faced seemed to dissolve as laughter and encouragement filled the air. However, we were soon reminded that the wilderness could be unforgiving. Just as we neared the summit, a sudden gust of wind whipped through the mountains, knocking Mark off balance. Instinctively, I reached out to grab him, but the force of the wind was strong, and he stumbled back, nearly losing his footing on a precarious ledge. "Hold on!" I shouted, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I steadied him. The moment felt like a precarious dance between vulnerability and strength, a reminder that nature demanded both humility and respect. Once we regained our footing, we huddled together, hearts racing from the near miss. "That was close," Clara breathed, her eyes wide. "It reinforces the lesson we've been learning," I said, trying to ground us. "We need to be vigilant and support one another. We're stronger together." As we stood on that rocky outcrop, united by our experiences and the challenges we had faced, I realized that the journey had not just been about conquering the mountain. It had been about overcoming our internal battles and emerging as a cohesive unit. The bonds we had forged in the heart of the wilderness would carry us not just to the summit of Mount Elysium, but beyond, into the lives we would lead after this adventure. Each of us had grown, and together, we were ready to face whatever lay ahead. As we stood at the precipice of Mount Elysium, the breathtaking view before us was a mixture of triumph and introspection. The vast expanse of the Great Smoky Mountains rolled out endlessly, their peaks shrouded in mist, a reminder of the wild beauty that had both challenged and transformed us. The journey to this moment had been fraught with obstacles, but those very challenges had forged bonds amongst us that felt unbreakable. The climb had tested not only our physical endurance, but also our emotional resilience. Each of us had confronted our fears, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and the very real fear that the mountains could be merciless. As I looked around at my companions, Clara, Mark, and Lila, I could see the changes in their expressions. They were no longer just fellow travelers. They were warriors who had walked through the fire and emerged stronger. Clara, once consumed by her relentless pursuit of answers, now radiated a newfound sense of purpose. "I can't believe we made it," she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. "It feels surreal." I smiled at her enthusiasm. "We didn't just make it, we fought for it. Each step we took was a testament to our growth." I could see her reflecting on the journey, the way her earlier obsession had transformed into a deeper understanding of the importance of connection and teamwork. Mark, who had battled his own doubts throughout our adventure, looked out over the horizon with a sense of wonder. "I never thought I could push myself like this," he admitted. I've always played it safe, but this feels incredible." His words resonated with me. It was true. The mountains had a way of stripping away our insecurities, forcing us to confront who we truly were. "You've shown great strength, Mark," I said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You faced your fears head-on, and that's what makes you a true adventurer." Lila, who had once been hesitant and unsure, now stood tall, her confidence shining brighter than ever. "I've realized that my fears don't define me. They're just part of my journey," she said, her voice steady. "I want to keep exploring, keep pushing my limits." Her transformation was inspiring, and I felt a swell of pride for her. We had all grown, and the challenges we faced had not only shaped our characters, but had also deepened our connections to one another. As we began our descent, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The lessons gleaned from our journey would extend far beyond our time in the mountains. I knew that I would carry this experience with me, a reminder of the strength that lies in unity and the importance of respecting the forces of nature. The descent, while physically taxing, felt lighter than the ascent. We shared laughter and stories, the bonds we had forged growing stronger with each step. Clara, now more reflective, recounted the moments of doubt we had faced, but with a sense of pride at how we had come together. "I think the wilderness has a way of teaching us what we need to learn," she mused. "Exactly," I agreed. "It challenges us, but it also reveals our true selves. We've faced the storms together, and that makes us more than just a group of hikers. It makes us a family." As we reached the base of the mountain, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape. We took a moment to pause, savoring the beauty around us. The colors of the sky blended into a stunning palette of oranges, pinks, and purples, a fitting backdrop for the conclusion of our journey. I felt a sense of gratitude wash over me as I looked at my friends. We had faced our fears, navigated through the chaos, and emerged not just as individuals, but as a united team. This adventure had changed us, and I knew that we would carry the lessons learned into our future endeavors. In that moment, I realized that the true essence of adventure was not merely about conquering mountains, but about the growth that occurs along the way. It was about facing our fears, embracing vulnerability, and finding strength in one another. As we made our way back, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a commitment to continue exploring, not only the world around me, but also the depths of my own spirit. We each had our own paths to follow, but now we were intertwined in a way that would forever shape our lives. The mountains had taught us invaluable lessons and had forged relationships that would endure long after we returned to our daily lives. We were explorers, yes, but we were also survivors, and together we had conquered not just the mountain, but the fears that had once held us back. As we prepared for the climax of our expedition, a sense of urgency filled the air, blending with the crisp chill of the North Pole. Our earlier challenges had transformed us from mere explorers into a cohesive unit, bound by shared experiences and a deeper understanding of the wilderness surrounding us. The lessons learned from our journey had solidified our resolve, but now we faced one final ascent, a challenge that would test everything we had become. The objective was clear: to reach the summit of Mount Elysium, a formidable peak that loomed over our camp like a silent sentinel. It represented not just the culmination of our expedition, but also the personal growth we had achieved as individuals and as a team. The mountain's majesty was both awe-inspiring and intimidating, and I could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on us as we discussed our strategy. In the days leading up to our final ascent, we gathered around the campfire each night, reflecting on our experiences and reinforcing our commitment to one another. Clara, who had emerged as a natural leader, took the helm in organizing our plans. "We've learned so much about trust and teamwork," she said passionately one evening. "This time, we're not just climbing for ourselves. We're doing this together to honor the spirits of the mountain." As we finalized our preparations, we meticulously checked our gear. Each piece of equipment was examined, and we made sure our climbing harnesses, ropes, and safety gear were in perfect condition. The camaraderie among us was palpable. The earlier fear that had gripped us was now replaced with a sense of determination and unity. I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension, knowing that the mountain still held secrets and challenges we could not predict. On the morning of our climb, the sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a golden light across the snow-covered landscape. The world felt serene, yet I could sense an undercurrent of tension as we gathered for the ascent. "Let's take this one step at a time," I reminded everyone, trying to instill a sense of calm. "We've trained for this, and we know what we're capable of." As we began our ascent, the beauty of the mountain enveloped us. The air was thin, making each breath feel more significant than the last. The sound of our footsteps crunching in the snow was drowned out by the wind, which howled around us, as if warning us of the challenges to come. I could feel the mountain's presence, a powerful entity that demanded respect and humility. The initial stretch of the climb was steep, testing our physical endurance. Clara, leading the way, encouraged the group with her unwavering spirit. "We can do this. Just keep pushing forward," she called out, her enthusiasm infectious despite the fatigue creeping into our limbs. I watched as Mark and Lila followed closely, their determination evident. Each step brought us closer to the summit, but it also heightened the stakes. As we climbed higher, the terrain became increasingly treacherous. The snow was deeper, and the path narrowed, forcing us to navigate carefully. I could feel the tension mounting as we approached a particularly challenging section, a sheer ice wall that required us to use our climbing gear. My heart raced as I assessed the situation. This was where we would truly need to rely on one another. "Okay, everyone," I said, gathering the group for a moment of focus. "We need to work together to get through this section. Let's communicate and support each other." Clara nodded, and I could see the confidence in her eyes. Mark checked his gear, ensuring everything was secure, while Lila took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenge ahead. As we began to ascend the ice wall, I felt the adrenaline pumping through my veins. I focused on the rhythm of my movements, the sound of my ice axe striking the ice, and the reassuring presence of my friends nearby. The climb was grueling, and with each pull upward, I felt the weight of our journey pressing down on me. The consequences of our earlier decisions loomed large in my mind, reminding me of the thin line we were walking between triumph and disaster. Midway up the wall, the weather began to turn. Dark clouds gathered ominously above us, and a chilling wind whipped through the mountains, sending a shiver down my spine. "We need to hurry," I shouted, urgency threading through my voice. "The weather is changing." Just as I reached for the next hold, a deafening crack echoed through the air. My heart dropped as I looked up to see a large section of ice above us breaking free. "Get down!" I yelled, but it was too late. The ice began to tumble, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. The avalanche of ice cascaded down, and I instinctively reached for Clara, pulling her close as we scrambled to find safety. The moment was chaos, shouts, the sound of ice crashing, and the panic that surged through the group. We had prepared for this climb, trained for it, but nothing could have prepared us for the raw power of nature unleashed before us. It was a turning point that would test not just our skills as climbers, but also our strength as a team. As the roar of the falling ice echoed in my ears, time seemed to slow down. I felt the ground tremble beneath my feet as I instinctively pulled Clara closer, shielding her from the impending chaos. The icy avalanche cascaded down the mountain with terrifying speed, and I could see Mark and Lila scrambling for safety as chunks of ice rained down around us. My heart raced, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I realized that our lives were hanging by a thread. "Go! Get to the ledge!" I shouted, my voice barely carrying over the din. Panic surged through me as I watched the massive wall of ice come crashing down, the very mountain we had sought to conquer now becoming our greatest threat. The world around us was a maelstrom of white and sound, a chaotic blend of nature's fury. With the avalanche barreling toward us, I turned to Clara, urgency in my voice. "We need to move now." We dashed toward a rocky outcrop that offered some semblance of protection, our feet slipping on the ice as we raced against time. The air was thick with snow and debris, and I could feel the roar of the avalanche vibrating through my body. As we reached the outcrop, I glanced back to see Mark and Lila making their way toward us, their faces etched with fear but determination. They had managed to escape the worst of the falling ice, but I could see that the danger was far from over. The ground beneath us continued to shake, and the roar of the avalanche faded into a haunting silence, leaving a foreboding stillness in its wake. "Is everyone okay?" I called out, my heart pounding as I scanned the area. Clara nodded, though her eyes were wide with shock. Mark and Lila reached us, breathless and shaken but unharmed. "What just happened?" Mark gasped, his voice trembling. "I thought we were done for." "We need to regroup," I said, trying to maintain a sense of calm despite the chaos in my mind. "We can't linger here. The mountain is unstable, and we need to find a safe way down." Each word felt heavy with urgency, the reality of our situation weighing on me like a leaden cloak. As we huddled together, catching our breath, I could feel the adrenaline slowly ebbing, replaced by a rush of clarity. The experience had shifted something within me. I understood now that our quest was about more than just reaching the summit. It was about survival, resilience, and the connections we formed in the face of adversity. "Let's take a moment to assess our gear," Clara suggested, her voice steadying as she began to check her equipment. "We need to ensure we're prepared for whatever comes next." Her composure inspired confidence, and the others followed her lead. As we inspected our gear, I couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was a test, a pivotal point in our journey where we would either rise to the occasion or succumb to the chaos of the wild. The mountain had challenged us in ways we hadn't anticipated, forcing us to confront our fears and insecurities. In that moment, I made a silent vow to honor the lessons we had learned. Whatever happened next, we would face it together. "All right," I said, gathering everyone's attention. "We've come too far to turn back now. We need to stay focused and work as a team. If we stick together, we can find a way down safely." Clara, Mark, and Lila nodded in agreement, their expressions resolute. It was clear that we were no longer just a group of adventurers. We had become a family, forged in the fires of adversity. As we began our descent, I felt a sense of unity envelop us, a bond that transcended our individual fears. Each step downward was a reminder of how far we had come, not just in miles, but in our personal growth. The mountains continued to loom around us, a majestic yet daunting presence, but now they felt less like a threat and more like a reminder of our strength and resilience. With each careful step, we navigated the treacherous terrain, communicating with one another and supporting each other through the obstacles. I focused on the rhythm of our movements, the sound of our breath, and the trust that had developed among us. We were no longer just explorers. We were guardians of one another's well-being. Finally, as we reached a flatter section of the trail, a sense of relief washed over me. We had endured the storm, faced the mountain's fury, and emerged stronger for it. The journey was far from over, but in that moment, I knew we had forged a bond that would last a lifetime. A bond born of shared experiences, challenges, and the undeniable power of unity in the face of adversity. As we finally made it back to the base camp, a wave of relief washed over me. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden hue across the landscape, illuminating the trails we had just conquered. The journey had been fraught with danger, but it had also been filled with moments of profound growth and connection. We had faced the mountain's wrath and emerged not only intact but transformed. Sitting around the campfire that evening, I looked around at Clara, Mark, and Lila, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. The laughter and camaraderie that had initially seemed fragile in the wake of our trials had solidified into something unbreakable. We shared stories of our fears, our triumphs, and the lessons we had learned throughout our harrowing adventure. Each story was a thread woven into the fabric of our shared experience, creating a tapestry of resilience and courage. I reflected on the personal growth each of us had undergone during this expedition. Clara had learned the value of balance. Her earlier obsession with uncovering the truth had transformed into a deeper understanding of teamwork and respect for the wilderness. Mark had discovered that vulnerability could be a source of strength, and Lila had found her voice, proving that she could face her fears head-on. As the fire crackled, I felt a sense of gratitude for the bond we had forged. We had entered the mountains as individuals, driven by our own motivations, but we had emerged as a family, united by a shared journey. The lessons learned in the face of danger had forever changed us, and I knew that we would carry these experiences with us long after we returned to our everyday lives. Looking up at the stars that twinkled overhead, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The mountains, once a source of fear, now felt like guardians, watching over us as we embraced the night. We had confronted the darkness and emerged victorious, not just in our quest to reach the summit, but in our understanding of ourselves and the power of connection. The journey had been a reminder that, while nature holds immense beauty, it also demands respect and humility. As I sat around the campfire with my friends, I knew that this was not just an end, but a beginning, a new chapter in our lives, filled with the promise of future adventures, shared experiences, and the strength that comes from facing the unknown together. Months later, as I look back on our expedition to the Great Smoky Mountains, I feel a profound sense of gratitude for the journey I shared with Clara, Mark, and Lila. Our bond, forged in the fires of adversity, remains strong. We continue to share our stories with fellow adventurers, emphasizing the importance of teamwork and respect for nature. The mountains, once a source of fear, have become a symbol of our resilience and growth. Each return to those peaks reminds me of the lessons learned and the strength found in unity, inspiring me to embrace new adventures with an open heart. Are you ready to embark on your own journey of discovery? Whether it's exploring the great outdoors, facing your fears, or seeking new experiences, take that first step today. Embrace the unknown and learn from the challenges you encounter along the way. Share your adventures with others, inspire them to respect nature, and foster a sense of community. The world is full of possibilities waiting to be uncovered. Dare to explore it. Your journey awaits, and the lessons you learn will shape who you become. Don't wait. Start your adventure now.